I'm your host, Natalie Hall, and you are listening to episode 67 of The Place of Sound. The Place of Sound is a show that explores the theme of space or social geography using sound and listening. We usually showcase 3 student projects, but today we're doing something a little bit different. Drone Day is an annual event that happens worldwide. This year, on May 25th, I attended Ottawa's Drone Day, and I collected sound, talked to people, and above all else, I listened. This piece, produced by me, is my coverage of Drone Day in Ottawa. For a select few of us, Drone Day started in the garden of the Dominion-Chalmers Center. While the rest of Ottawa was bursting with life, crowds gathering all over the city for the Glebe garage sale or, to God forbid, run a marathon, a group of no more than 10 of us gathered. We were waiting for Bourne.
My name is Bourne. I'm a composer, artist. I work with sound in many ways.
Anne is a cellist, singer, and a seasoned musician in experimental sound. When Anne was ready, we moved into the room attached to the garden. It was far less idyllic, painted a yellowy beige color with bright lighting, an assortment of beautiful stock-like photos of Ottawa on the walls. We got to work right away, and Anne was meticulous. There was a circle of chairs that had been made for us, but we dragged them back and forth, each one making a grating sound until the circle was perfect. And then we began our tonal meditation. By the time we had gotten to the tonal meditation, our group had grown and the circle widened. We all sustained a note, helping each other create the sound, balance it, and carry it on. When one of our voices would fade, another one would be there to continue the score. The tonal meditation is a sound practice passed down to Anne by Pauline Oliveros in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in New Mexico.
She kind of blew a conch and we all assembled on a big carpet in a hall a small room. It had like windows all along the south facing, overlooking the mountains. It was a listening retreat. And she said something like, listen to the beginnings and the endings of sounds. And then we just sat in silence.
Bourne is a lineage bearer of Pauline Oliveros' teachings. who is a fundamental thinker in experimental sound. Her practices in listening are what anchor Drone Day. Droning is a way of making sound by sustaining one tone. There are many ways to do it, and on Drone Day, musicians and listeners participate in a sound marathon listening to hours of drone.
The way we do Drone Day is there's 8 hours of continuous sound. There aren't breaks in between each performance. So even just being in the room, the stage, which is very large, fortunately, is just a constant like making and unmaking, and everything is very exposed. You see the next artist setting up while the current artist is playing, and so it's very like experimental. I think it's funny that it's the race weekend. It's like marathoners are circling this building, and what we're doing here is very much like a sound marathon.
That was Rachel Weldon, the founder and director of Debaser, a non-for-profit music programming organization out of Ottawa. Debaser co-presented the first Drone Day back in 2014, created by Marie LeBlanc Flanagan of Weird Canada. Drone Day happens once a year worldwide, and according to the website, it can occur in a park, under a bridge, on the beach, on a roof, in the record store, online, in a cave, or under your bed. This year in Ottawa, however, it was put on by Debaser and Carleton University Art Gallery in the Dominion-Chalmers Center. The whole day took place in the church inside the building. It's a massive chapel, dimly lit with only light coming from the stained glass panels in the roof and a few bulbs on the ceiling.
And it's got this giant organ, which is the centerpiece of the stage. And later on in the program today, we'll hear that organ being played. It's like the ultimate drone maker. So it's amazing that that's like the centerpiece of this building. It's like truly the instrument that is the building itself. And really excited to hear it.
The gathering in the church was sparse. People were strewn about on empty pews, legs and arms spread out haphazardly. The sound filled up what the people couldn't, the power of the drone touching each corner of the room, pushing people in and out of the space.
I was visiting home after 2 years, and then I got my tickets. I was ready to go, and I saw the poster for Drone Day. At that point, I wasn't sure if I want to submit something and perform, or if I'd be able to work for Debaser, stage manage for them for Drone Day. But nevertheless, even before anything was final, I was sure I want to just be here for it. So I immediately changed my ticket.
Maeve is a friend and was working for Debaser on Drone Day. They arrived from Iran a day before working 12 hours at the event. This is a dedication that I just couldn't understand until I witnessed the group drone. "1 minute Anne Bourne was playing her cello alone on the stage. In the next, artists were climbing up to join her with tubas, keyboards, pedals, harmonicas. I even saw a karaoke mic.
So there was a lull, and all of a sudden I heard Nick behind me with this amazing clarinetist. I didn't get everyone's name, but and there's kind of twittering and activity, and it felt like it was Christmas morning or something. Like I didn't know what was. I was in such an altered state. I didn't know what was going on, and then I realized, oh, I'm being surrounded by people.
Similarly to Anne, I was lulled into a meditative state that lasted 40 minutes, the length of the group drone. It was as Anne had described Pauline's teachings. Listening to the beginnings and endings of sound, my eyes darted across the stage and I could see noise being created as people plucked chords and deconstructed and reconstructed their instruments. But where that sound went, I wasn't sure. It was everywhere, but I couldn't place a single tone to any one person.
So it really requires you to listen as much as you offer sound and blend yourself in with other people.
At one point, one of the artists broke away from the stage and started walking around the audience. They had this metal box with switches and knobs. I'd never seen anything like it. I don't know what to call it, but this is the sound it made. What you're hearing is an excerpt from a 40-minute group drone. This recording is a piece of archive of drone day history and the score passed down from Pauline Oliveros, Horse Sings from Cloud. The piece, which to many may just sound like noise, is an audio document of what droning is meant to do. Create an accessible practice of sound creation, remove hierarchies in music that are defined by skill and precision, and above all else, it means coming together as a collective.
It truly felt like, when you're in nature and you feel like you're part of something so much bigger than yourself, and you kind of just let yourself go and lose yourself in everything that surrounds you. It kind of just felt like I'm not alone, and there are so many people around me who resonate with me, quite literally, and just feeling the vibrations of so many different instruments and sounds and timbres. Felt like I'm floating in a whole world around me. I just felt less lonely for a bit.
This is Pauline Oliveros.
You can't train the ear. It does what it does, right?
Yep. It's a microphone.
It's a microphone. It
does. Very cool microphone.
It's a very cool microphone. It does what it does. But what can be trained is listening, and that's what technology is doing. Is changing the way we listen. It can't change the way we hear, but it can. Our listening is the kind. I think that listening is probably very close to what we call consciousness.
At this point in the episode, we have talked a lot about sound, but I wanted to think of Drone Day in terms of place. I've lived in Ottawa for 2 years now, and I am continuously surprised by the creativity and collective action that comes out of a city that people implored me not to go to with fears of boringness. While Drone Day does not only have its place in Ottawa, in some ways it got its beginnings here. Here is what Rachel has to say about droning and experimental music in Ottawa.
I think there are a lot of people who really are drawn to experimental music in Ottawa. It's like a small but mighty community of musicians and artists who want to just engage in experimental work and practice. So I think that despite maybe there not being like a reputation for maybe like big events around this type of activity, there is like a really tight-knit community who always come out to Drone Day. They've been coming out since the beginning. I think that it just is sort of really speaks to the underground culture of Ottawa. It's not something that's very visible or superficially available, but the people are here, like if you just sort of peel back the surface a little bit.
Maeve is a part of that community as an artist, listener, and laborer for Debaser. For them, experimental music, events like Drone Day, cement Ottawa as a home away from home.
Yesterday when I was kind of like settling in, thinking about the past month and like how much I felt at home, quite literally at home, and that how much having things that I look forward to here and people that make a whole different, like a whole new space feel like home. It just felt so, it was just such a paradox. But also, yeah, it warms my heart to feel like there's just so much care and love just across the world for me.
Anne, who I talked to after Drone Day, joined me via Zoom from a friend's house. She was making coffee and birds were chirping, and she told me about how returning to Ottawa is a full circle moment in her career as a musician. CKCU happens to be where Anne played on the radio for the first time.
As a child, from the age of 10 to, 7, until I was like rebelling, my parents would send me and my friend to the concerts of the National Arts Centre Orchestra. So they would drop me off there. I was like 10, 11. And, I dreamed of being a conductor. And I used to air conduct in my living room. People do air guitar, I was air conducting. And then similarly, I recalled when I first spoke to you that my first recording was at CKCU in the stairwell as a 17-year-old cellist and playing on some boy's song,
A common theme in this show, and one that I was intending to explore in this episode, is of physical geography. There's lots of conversation around moving to a new place, making a certain space your home, why certain things go on in certain cities or towns. And I've had the idea that Drone Day and the conversation around place would have to do with why Drone Day is in Ottawa, what experimental music means for Ottawa. And I did explore that. But what really popped out at me after my experience at Drone Day was not place as a physical location, but rather the geography of one's own body. That may be a new idea for some people. I have only been really thinking of it in this past week or two after my conversation with Anne. What really made me take note of my own body and start to map it was during Anne's workshop. She told us to feel the sound in our own body. And I felt it. I felt it right in my stomach, clear as day, like a real feeling. It was heavy. She said that when we are walking around the city, when we are in our day-to-day lives and we're hearing things that we just aren't ready for, we should grab our stomachs or touch our thumbs to our pointer fingers, and we can block these access points in our body from receiving harsh, intense sound. I don't know the science behind that. Maybe if you're not a spiritual person, it's hard to believe in that kind of energy. Nonetheless, it was so interesting to me. Your own body is a place in itself. That sound affects it in ways that a traffic jam would affect a city street is really interesting. And I just wanted to shift the conversation from this loss of place or this stagnation of place that we come across time and time again. And it's a widely shared experience, is you're in one place for too long or you leave a place before you're fully done with it, to remind us all that we are at home in our own body. Those are my reflections on Drone Day. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Anne, Maeve, and Rachel for speaking with me. To the Pauline Oliveros Trust for letting us play the scores of Pauline Oliveros. For Debaser and QAG for putting on Drone Day. To all of the artists that performed. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Place of Sound. Ever since I started hosting and producing at The Place of Sound, I've been thinking about how we can get more of the community involved. I know that there are tons of talented sound artists, musicians, poets, communication scholars out there who haven't had an opportunity to produce for us, and I wanted that to change. So I'm very excited to announce that The Place of Sound is now accepting submissions of audio stories to be played on our show. The requirements are very simple. Your piece needs to be between 2 to 15 minutes long. It must include a conversation of home, place, geography, and it has to be decent quality. To find out more about how you can submit and further detailed instructions, please go to our Instagram at The Place of Sound or visit our website, theplaceofsound.ca. I'm so excited to hear. I hope we get a couple of your voices on the radio. For the rest of the summer, The Place of Sound is going to be a bit different. There will be less student work and more long-form pieces like this. You'll be hearing a lot more interviews and hopefully a lot of new voices. If you're interested in checking out more, have a look at theplaceofsound.ca. But in the meantime, keep your ear out for upcoming episodes of the show, which air on CKCU Radio every other Monday at 6:30 p.m. and are available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm your host, Natalie Hall, and thank you for listening to The Place of Sound. To play us out, here is a live recording from 16:9 Ratio's performance at Drone Day.